Okay, Derbyites, we are 2 days away from the Oscars. I am panicking over my predictions. I don't know about you guys. Who wants to go first? Daniel, what are you changing last minute? Have you made any changes? Are you debating changing anything? Let us hear it.
I'm debating changes. I've sort of, moved past this sort of, anxiety about, oh my goodness, is this going to win? Is this going to win? To just kind of a nice, cool, like, resignation to being wrong either way. So it's just like if I can make a case equally, like the categories I'm still debating in my head, I could make a case one way or the other. So I may as well stay where I am because honestly, I couldn't make a better case for the other one than I can for the one I'm currently predicting. So I haven't actually made a change in several days, and I'm not sure I'm going to.
I just made four changes. Um, One of them, well, I guess two of them are kind of small, two of them are kind of bigger categories. But I guess the biggest one I made was director. For the longest time, I had Linklater. Then I changed to Inarritu. I think 2 days ago, I changed back to Linklater. And I don't know how you guys feel about that decision, but when I thought about all of the precursors, the Golden Globe went to Linklater, the Critics' Choice went to Linklater, the BAFTA went to Linklater, and the Gold Derby Film Award, which was announced yesterday, that went to Linklater. Inarritu has only won one. He won the DGA. So in my mind, it's the score is 4-1, and Linklater is the obvious choice to win here. Am I crazy?
Yes,
Why?
because yes, BAFTA did give it to Linklater, but DGA did too, and DGA has Academy members. So does BAFTA, but DGA has Academy members, and that is one of the best, at least for the best directing prize, is one of the best prognosticators of what will win in the directing category. And I am sticking with Iñárritu.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Iñárritu also, because yes, Linklater won the Golden Globes. The Golden Globes, in terms of their voting membership, have nothing to do with the Oscars.
All
The
seven
Critics'
of them.
Choice Awards have exactly. The Critics' Choice Awards picked Richard Linklater. All the critics picked Boyhood, basically the major critics groups. But the critics groups do not have anything to do with the Oscar voting membership. I think the two that we can only look at reliably are DGA and BAFTA, because those are the two groups that include not necessarily all members of the Academy, all of them. There are members of the Academy in both groups, but they're both industry groups. That's the group that who does the industry like? That's what the Oscars is all about. So who the Golden Globes picked, it's not irrelevant necessarily, but it's not really going to sway me one way or another. The DGA result the DGA isn't always right. We know that Linklater could still win, but just on the math of it, if I'm going to sway one way or another, I'm going to stick with the probability of that DGA win combined with the PGA, combined with the SAG Awards, these other industry groups that are going to be voting for Best Director also. So yeah, I'm sticking with Iñárritu, but it could be Linklater. Like I said, I'm resigned to being wrong.
I do not. I usually do not back down from. I learned the hard way in 2011 when, even though Tom Hooper won DGA for King's Speech, I still thought that David Fincher was going to win. Even though I was still going to I picked King's Speech for Best Picture. I still thought Fincher was going to pull it out for directing, and boy was I wrong in throwing crap to my television that evening. So. To the dismay of my parents, but so that's where I'm going to stick with what the DGA says. At least there, I'm still picking Boyhood for Best Picture.
Right. And I just want to bring up also the past 2 years in a row here at Gold Derby, the editors overall did better than the experts and better than the users. And I'm looking at the predictions right now, and the editors are going for Inarritu. So that might tell me I'm wrong, actually, now that I say that. But going for Linklater is we have 3 of our editors, we have 8 of our experts, and we have 13 of the top 24 users. So I don't know. This is this is definitely one of the races that's driving me crazy. Ralph, where do you come out on this?
I consciously have Iñárritu slotted right now, but I've been really tempted the last few days to change over to Linklater because if to Daniel's point, if it is about who the industry really likes, I think everybody here in this town really likes Richard Linklater. He has such a reputation for being such a nice guy. He's been nominated for an Oscar, 3 times before. This is his fifth nomination. So
Twice.
Twice, yeah. Original screenplay though. This is his first director nomination. But I guess that's the same with Iñárritu. But I'm tempted because of that, and because if you throw out, if you've got BAFTA and DGA, and there is overlap, but if you actually look at, what's more impressive, the single shot, or doing it over 12 years and actually making a cohesive film, I think once you look at that, and you're not just a bunch of directors, but you're a whole industry, I think that may sway more towards him. I don't count SAG at all as being any kind of indicator at all whatsoever with Birdman. Not a single thing, because that cast was going to win whether it was in Birdman or whether it was in Grand Budapest Hotel. I mean, that cast was incredible, and actors are going to vote for it no matter what. I think it's telling that if SAG really did like Birdman that much, they would have voted Keaton Best Actor, just like everybody expected. So I think you can't really take SAG into consideration as a big indicator, one of those big three at the guilds that it won. I think that's bullcrap. But that said, I think Iñárritu, going with what DGA has voted like the last few years, it's always been a foreigner, and over the last couple of years, and it may end up that way again. But I'm so tempted to switch to Linklater, and I just don't know. I'm with you guys.
I think Chris Beecham switched today to Linklater as well. Chris Beecham is one of our savviest editors. I think he got something like 96%, last year predicting the Oscars. Another category I want to talk about was film editing. This is one I had Boyhood for a long time, and I switched a couple days ago to Whiplash. Charlie, is this a good decision?
Yes, that film is a film where after you see it, one of the things you think about is how, especially that final scene, you think about how that was edited and how that was all put together, and I really, and we know that there is the big passion that is going through Hollywood right now is for Whiplash. We know that is the movie that really has, the most passionate fans behind it in terms of voting members of the Academy. So I don't think it's out of left field at all. I've had it for a little while in there. I still think Boyhood is a very strong possibility, but I think Whiplash has a very decent shot there.
And Daniel, where do you come down on the editing guys?
I'm narrowly picking Boyhood. I agree, it's one of those two films. I will not be surprised at all if Whiplash wins. I don't have a lot of confidence in this. We know they love Boyhood. Whatever you think of its editing, I do think voters will look at that, especially voters who aren't editors, and come away thinking about, wow, that 12 years putting that all together into a film. I think it'll get a little credit there, in the brutally honest Oscar ballot that Hollywood Reporter published. That anonymous Academy member was talking about voting for Boyhood for Best Film Editing, and talked about how that precise reason, was, oh yeah, that 12 years thing, that really was a significant achievement. But again, Whiplash is far more conspicuously edited, and that often gets the edge, but not always. So it's one of those two. But I'm on Boyhood, and I just feel like I may as well just stick with it.
The only thing that worries me is that 26 experts predict Boyhood, 17 of the top 24 predict Boyhood. So this is pretty much a runaway win for Boyhood here. There's only a few outliers like me and Charlie that are predicting Whiplash. Ralph, what about you?
I'm predicting Whiplash for everything except for Best Picture, and I'm not so certain that it can't pull that off either. I think there's so much passion for Whiplash that, and when you actually watch it, I mean, it's incredible, and it's got music. It's completely different than any of the other nominees are. It stands out on its own completely, and I think that will help it a lot. It won BAFTA, so it had that buzz right before voting started. It won 4 BAFTAs, which is kind of insane. Three? Yeah, 3 BAFTAs. 2 that nobody expected it to win. So I think there's a lot of love and support behind it, which is why I'm also predicting it for the screenplay award. I mean, I think it's in a really good shape. It's kind of like the Grand Budapest is in all of the art categories. I feel like Whiplash is like this in the tech categories.
Interesting. Do you guys want to talk about that screenplay category?
Sure.
All right. Let's switch over to adapted screenplay here because that is where. Let me get my list. So that is where Whiplash is going, even though it's kind of an original film, I guess, because of some rule that it was a short film a decade ago that it has to compete in the adapted race, which I think is kind of strange. But you know what? It ended up working out because that's almost an easier race this year. Because over on the original side, you have all the heavy hitters. So I bet the writer Damien Chazelle is kind of happy that happened. Right now, I'm predicting The Imitation Game. I'm hearing a lot of good things from voters, from the experts that Derby. Everyone seems to be going for either Imitation Game or Whiplash. I just think this is the one chance The Imitation Game will have to win an Oscar. What about you, Daniel?
I'm predicting. I'm playing it safe. I'm predicting The Imitation Game too. But the best thing that ever could have happened to Damien Chazelle was that weird classification as an adapted screenplay because Whiplash had no prayer of winning original screenplay, and it is right in the thick of it for adapted screenplay. And the reason this is difficult is because we have nothing to go on here. We've seen Whiplash compete at other awards, but it's always been an original screenplay. Imitation Game won the WGA award, but it didn't have to face Whiplash. So, the Imitation Game lost the BAFTA award to The Theory of Everything. So I don't even think we should 100% rule that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's we do not have a single tea leaf to judge the race between Imitation Game and Whiplash. But and even though I'm tentatively predicting Imitation Game, I don't think this is the one chance to award Imitation Game is going to help it. It was shut out at the BAFTAs. It was shut out at the Golden Globes. It was shut out at the Critics' Choice Awards and SAG Awards and so and just look at American Hustle last year. It went 0 for 10. So when Screenplay was that film's best chance to win. So I don't think that sentiment is necessarily going to help it. But I'm still giving it the slight edge, just based on how strong it's been overall, how many nominations it's got. The Academy clearly likes this film a lot, and it won the Writers Guild. So that's where I am.
Yeah, this is one of those categories that I'm really struggling with, but I have had Imitation Game for forever. I don't think I ever switched it. What about you, Charlie?
Hell if I know. There are enough faults in terms of, not in terms of the movie itself, The Imitation Game, but there are enough faults in terms of, of its chances. I think the biggest factor is that right now I have Whiplash, but I'm very tempted to switch back to The Imitation Game because it feels like it's just the safe choice.
Yeah. And then Ralph, did you make your prediction earlier?
I have Whiplash winning. I have Imitation Game in 4th in my predictions.
Whoa.
Which is really high for me for The Imitation Game. when Daniel was listing off all of its losses, it was music to my ears. But I mean, it won WGA. It didn't go up against anybody that really, I mean, Theory of Everything maybe, but like Daniel said, Theory of Everything beat it at BAFTAs, not only in British film, which everybody thought Imitation Game, but then in screenplay, where everybody thought Imitation Game. It's gotten no love anywhere else. It's gotten a slew of nominations, which that's true, but that doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden the safe choice to win an Oscar over a film that we have been saying just a little while ago that seems to be really loved by this Academy. It seems to be really enjoyed. So I just don't see how Whiplash loses this unless it's to something like American Sniper, which also hasn't been out, but has over $300 million at the box office and is and is hugely buzzed about during the Oscars right now. I mean, I don't buy the Imitation Game winning, and I think, like you guys said, American Hustle lost all of them last year. It's not inconceivable for Imitation Game to lose all of them this year.
Right. Another category that I see people going, one of two or even three ways is documentary feature. I recently switched to Virunga, but a lot of people are voting for Citizen 4. A few people are going for Finding Vivian Meyer. Ralph, you have a good theory about Virunga, why you think that will win. What is that?
I think Virunga is going to win, well, for several reasons. It's about saving animals, which is what everybody loves, and the Oscars obviously loved. March of the Penguins, I guess, wasn't really about it, but it won. It beat a few others, that could have been front runners, even though March of the Penguins was choose at that time. But also, The Cove won. I mean, this is much like The Cove, maybe not as popular, but it's on the biggest platform, or the second biggest platform out there. It's accessible. Netflix is pushing it like hell. One of the Academy screenings out here where Leonardo DiCaprio was out pumping it up. Bill Clinton made a surprise visit there, which, it's Bill Clinton, and the Oscars love him. He got the standing ovation at the Globes even that one year. And, it's I just think it's, when you look at it, and even just looking at the key art, the artwork, if you get to see it, it's got, it already tugs at your heartstrings. I just think with something like Citizen 4, which is old news, hacking, everything hacked now is about Sony. It's not about Snowden. It's just, I think it's got a hell of a shot. Netflix was already in this last year. They know what they had to do this year in order to campaign. They campaigned at the right time. They came in late to the game when voters had ballots in their hands, and they pushed it like hell, and I think it really gave them an upper hand momentum-wise here. But then I could be wrong, like I was about Leo last year when I thought the same damn thing.
And speaking of Bill Clinton, didn't his buddy win an Oscar for, what was Al Gore's movie called? Simple Truth?
Oh,
Inconvenient Truth?
Inconvenient Truth.
Yeah, Inconvenient Truth, yeah.
What about you, Daniel? Where do you fall on this documentary race here?
I agree. Virunga could do it. I'm going with the front runner, Citizen 4. You mentioned the Sony hacking scandal. I think the Sony hacking scandal, if anything, helps Citizen 4 because you have an industry that's been rocked by this the horror show of having its privacy invaded and spread out for the world to see. So if you're a Sony exec and you're watching Citizen 4 and the access of information the government has and can use against you, that's going to resonate with you in a particular way, and I'm not sure that will be the key to its victory, but I think it helps rather than hurts in terms of its chances at Oscars. It is a politically charged film that may not help it. We've seen. The last few years have gone to very populist movies. Virunga has that's sort of a feel-good message, even though it is a dark film. And then you got Finding Vivian Meyer, which is about an artist. The last two winners were about musicians. So that could win, especially because it seems like it's going to be the lighter alternative to some of these other choices. So, but all those things considered, I'm still sticking with Citizen 4. I mean, Netflix, has that promotional power. They couldn't get it done for the Square last year. They could this year, certainly, but I'm just narrowly sticking with Citizen 4.
And Charlie, what about you?
Which race are we talking about?
Documentary feature still.
Oh, okay. I have Citizen 4 right now, but I gradually have lost confidence completely in that pick. So I'm very tempted to possibly switch to Virunga or even possibly Finding Vivian Mayer. They just seem like the more academy-friendly and broader reaching pieces.
Would this be a good time to talk about the shorts? Charlie, I know you've done a lot of work on those. What do you think? What do you want to start with? Animation short?
Well, yeah, let's start with animated. It's an interesting batch, and right now I'm picking Feast, the one about that showed before Big Hero 6 about the dog, and we see the relationships of his owner through the dog's eyes and the leftovers that he's fed. It's a cute one, but I'm very wary, even though I'm picking it because Disney does not have a good track record in this category. They did finally manage to win their first in like 40-some-odd years, 2 years ago with Paperman. They lost last year for Get a Horse, but this one, like Paperman, has a bit more of a heart to it, and it is just kind of adorable. But I have a feeling that there might be some more pretentious members of the Academy who they won't. I'm not saying they have hearts of stone. I'm just saying they just won't be wowed by it. And,
wait, they have hearts?
Kind of. It's a really complicated thing. I don't have a cardiologist to go over it. It's cyborgs, robots, $6 Million Man. It's very complicated. Anyhow, and so I am very tempted to pick the Dam Keeper. It's just a very beautiful combining regular hand-drawn animation and brush strokes, and it's very visually striking.
They created their own world.
It has quite a heart too.
They created this whole world, this whole mythology in less than 20 minutes with the whole dam, and it's not keeping back water, by the way, if you haven't seen it. And the animals are so lovable, and that was the one when I watched it. I said, this is the winner. I know Feast is way, way, way out front, but I think that has to do with the fact that it was shown before Big Hero 6. More people have seen that than anything else. If these voters get lazy, if they may not watch everything, they may just pick the one that they've heard of, and they may go with Feast. But
then again, it didn't help Get a Horse last year, and that showed before Frozen.
That's a really good point. That's why I think the Dam Keeper has a really good shot.
Yeah. The most visually striking one is what's it called? The one with the brothers.
The Bigger Picture?
The Bigger Picture, yes. That one's the most striking one in terms of how it is visually, and that could definitely benefit it there. They don't always go for the thing with the most heart. I guess it was 5 years ago they went with a short called Logorama, which is about which basically is in this world where all the characters and everything are made out of corporate logos, and it's about two cops who are played by Michelin men trying to track down a psychotic robber played by Ronald McDonald. And it's a great movie. I did not expect it to win, especially because it's up against a Wallace and Gromit short. But it won, so they could be drawn to that visual style.
Drawn. And skipping to documentary short, this seems to be a blowout, at least at Gold Derby, for Crisis Hotline. Almost everyone is predicting it. Do you think people are just following what other people are doing, or do you think another short could topple Crisis Hotline?
Well, I had an interesting perspective into that one because I saw the other four, and then I had to request to HBO a screener of Crisis Hotline. So I had seen all the other fours, and then I was like, okay, well, this is the one that's being hyped up so much, and it is very tough. And I will tell you, it lives to that. It is very tough to watch that and not think this is the one to beat. It is it is emotionally gripping. You can't help but feel for these not only the veterans who are calling, but the people who are in this call center. You not just only have people listening; they're also talking. They're also communicating with supervisors, trying to coordinate. You know, police and ambulance to get to these people. The huge scandal with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and so that definitely factors into this feeling like a very timely film. I will say I think the one to watch out for though is Our Curse, the Polish film about the parents who have the newborn son who has the what do you call it? The respiratory problem, and he has to wear a ventilator while he sleeps. And the end of the movie is very uplifting. It's
Did you guys lose Charlie?
Yeah.
You're cutting
What's that?
You're cutting in and out just a little bit, but you're back now.
Oh, I am?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi.
Am I? All right. I'm just gonna. I'm just say Our Curse though, to get to the really emotional stuff, to the really like heartwarming stuff. It is very bleak because the parents are very they're very scared of what these of the circumstances that this child's going to grow up in, and there are two particular scenes. One of them is a scene where the father, who's one of the nominated filmmakers, he is it's him and his wife, and they're talking, and the father says to the camera, I'm worried that when he's able to fully understand the seriousness of his illness, that he'll just commit suicide. And then the other part is a scene where they are changing the baby's tracheotomy tube, and it just stays on the baby, and it's a very, very hard scene to watch. But the emotional payoff at the end, where you see these parents, they're very joyful with this child, and they're you can actually go to a blog now. The child's 4 years old now. It's normally I would say that would win, but I think Crisis Hotline is the more likely of the two.
And then for live action short, I watched these in alphabetical order, and after each one ended, I'm like, okay, that was okay, that was okay, that was okay. And when I got to the last one, which is The Phone Call, I'm like, that was amazing. I felt like I was watching a feature. I felt like I was in the theater watching, this really, really well put together short, and it had recognizable actors in it. I don't know if that could help, because I know it didn't really help the Borman problem last year. But Sally Hawkins is in it, Jim Broadbent, and it's just a really, really gripping story with a really emotional ending. Is there anything that could beat this, Charlie?
Yes, Boogaloo and Graham, the one about the two boys in Northern Ireland who get the pet chickens. That one I think is going to win. The problem with The Phone Call is when I saw it, and I agree, it's very emotional, very well made. The problem with The Phone Call is it reminded me of a short that was nominated 2 years ago called Henry. And at first, this short, it seems like it's like a mystery. This older guy is trying to find his wife, and he doesn't know where she is. But through a series of flashbacks, we discover that the guy actually has Alzheimer's, and he's in a home for advanced care. And I will say this flat out. I just sobbed at the end of that one. I was so moved by it. And then I went to Golden Jury, and everyone had it like in last place. That no one thought it was going to win. Schmaltzy, some of the for some of the voters who are voting in this category, and I think Boogaloo and Graham has more of the feel of what you might expect. They love films with children in it. So like last year with Helium, trying to remember 2 years ago, one Curfew, which had the little girl in it. They love films with children. So I'm going to give the advantage here to Boogaloo and Graham, even though The Phone Call is a strong second.
All right. So, do you guys want to finish talking about Best Picture, since this is one of the tightest Best Picture races? I can
actor.
remember.
An actor. I need help on actor.
Okay, let's start with actor and then finish with picture. Daniel, what do you have for actor? I'm assuming it's Eddie Redmayne, like everyone else. Or
I have Eddie Redmayne in there. I was more confident about that before Birdman started up on its sweep of a lot of the American Industry Guild Awards. Normally I'd say, oh, it's probably going to be Redmayne, and I still think it's going to be Redmayne, but it would not surprise me if Birdman wins. If Birdman turns out to be your best picture, he could go along for the ride, but that's not necessarily true. I mean, you have things like A Beautiful Mind, which won Best Picture, didn't win Lead Actor, and 12 Years a Slave last year won Best Picture, its lead actor didn't win. But in this case, I feel like Birdman and Keaton could potentially go hand in hand, but I'm still picking Redmayne.
and everyone assumes this is a two-person race, but one of our experts is actually predicting Bradley Cooper. Ralph, is there any chance Cooper could win?
Oh my God, yes. I actually think I think he's in second place. I think Redmayne's in first, Cooper's in second, and Keaton is in third. I think any three could win, but I'm with Pete Hammond, who I feel stole a lot of my ideas and my predictions before he went on the podcast with Tom. There's just a lot of love for Bradley Cooper, and like you'd mentioned in his DGA write-up, that when Bradley Cooper went up just to go present the nomination plaque to Clint Eastwood, he got the loudest applause of the entire night, and it's his third nomination. The film has to be awarded somewhere, I would imagine, or if it has any shot of being awarded anywhere, it's going to be either here in screenplay. I mean, sound editing, yeah, we have kind of already determined it's going to win there, but one of these big ones for being such a mega kind of hit. And I don't know. I mean, Keaton is great, but I still think that SAG victory kind of knocked him down quite a bit. I mean, if they really like I said, if they really like Birdman that much, he would have gone along for that ride as well, especially when it's just actors voting on actors, and you have a whole industry who's worked with a lot of these people. And Redmayne is charming. He's been all over the media doing his hugs and kisses and everything else that you've got to do. The anti-Monique, I guess you can call him. He's he's great. He gives one of those transformative kind of physically transformative performances that you just walk out of the screening and you're just wow. And I remember going to the Academy premiere back in September of this film, and the Academy when his name was called, Felicity Jones got a nice round of applause, but when his name was called, there were people standing up. They were just cheering for him after the screening. I mean, I think they're in love with him, and I think he's got the best shot, but I still think Bradley Cooper is breathing heavily down his neck.
And Charlie, are you still rooting for Steve Carell, or have you faced reality?
Oh, you could read me like a book. I'm actually, at this point, just to clear up on this, I'm just happy Steve Carell got in here because, if he ever does another really great performance, it shows that the Academy's willing to let him in. Unlike, other comedic actors like Jim Carrey, who, despite several fantastic performances, has never been let in. So I'm just glad Steve Carell got invited to the party this year. With regard to I feel so bad I just said that. I'm picking Redmayne right now. Everything seems to just to him and planet, and I just.
Dude, your video's rough.
I think we officially lost Charlie.
The internet couldn't handle his opinions.
It's funny watching the charts and graphs of Gold Derby because, before SAG, if I remember correctly, Redmayne and Keaton were kind of, flat, kind of tied almost. And then as soon as Redmayne won the SAG, Redmayne just shot straight up. Everyone started predicting him. Poor Keaton drop.
Actually, I think Keaton was I think it was before the Golden Globes that they were sort of closer together, and then it's sort of like Golden Globes, Keaton went that way, and then Redmayne, and then SAG. It just totally flipped back around again.
That's funny. Okay, final category. Save the best for last. Best picture. I don't know what to do. I'm sticking with Boyhood right now, just because I feel like it has more heart to it. Everyone keeps saying that, but it's true. It really does. Birdman, no one leaves the theater just all warm and fuzzy inside like they do with Boyhood. Um, I liked Boyhood more personally, but I'm trying to take my emotion out of this, and I just think that Boyhood transcends, Hollywood. Anyone can watch this movie and relate to it. It has the most broad appeal of any of the other Best Picture nominees, especially Birdman. So I'm sticking with Boyhood. I'm sticking with my BAFTA. BAFTA chose Boyhood. Golden Globes chose Boyhood. What else? Critics' Choice. So I'm sticking with those. That's my trifecta. I don't know. Other people have another trifecta, but this is mine. What about Ralph? Go ahead.
Well, you copied my trifecta because I emailed you guys that like a month ago.
Oh, you
so
did?
You're welcome. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you. I'm on Boyhood. I think it does have the broader appeal. If the demographic of the Academy that we've been touting so much about, these guys who didn't nominate Selma because they're all 67 and older, white, grouchy males, I think they're definitely going to relate more to Boyhood than they are to being a superhero that isn't a superhero anymore in Birdman. And also, I personally like Birdman better than I liked Boyhood. Even though I did like Boyhood, I liked them both. But I think there's much more love it, hate it with Birdman than there is with Boyhood. And I think with the way, if this was a popular vote, like at the SAG, I would think Birdman would have this probably, no doubt about it. But with Boyhood being, or voting being the way it is, I think I can't really see anybody not having Boyhood 1, 2, 3, or 4 at the very, least.
Yeah.
A majority of them, and those 2, 3 votes are going to help it so much. Whereas Birdman, I can see people having 7th or 6th or 8th, or with a lot of number 1 votes, but not in that kind of 2 to 4 grouping. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sticking with Birdman, but I think if they split, Whiplash has a hell of a chance to get in there, because that's going to be in people's top 3. As much as people love it out here, that's I mean, it's scary. I hope it pulls off. I think that would be awesome to have that crazy win. But I'm going with Boyhood for the reasons you said. It's won the Globe, it's won the Critic, BAFTA. It didn't win SAG, but as I said, I think SAG is irrelevant in this case. So I'm going with it all the way.
Yeah. Daniel, do you think there's any voters that are really strategic or malicious with their voting? Like, if you're a Boyhood fan, would you put Birdman in 8th place and vice versa? Do you think that happens, or do you think the voters they don't even understand the preferential ballot?
Well, I think there are people who, if they follow the system in both cases, a Birdman partisan who knows this is a close race is going to rank Boyhood at the bottom. A Boyhood partisan who knows it's a close race might rank Birdman at the bottom. I think that probably kind of cancels it, itself out. And one of them still wins, but I don't think that it's necessarily a factor. The interesting thing, though, is we keep talking about how Birdman is a more divisive movie, and that may very well be the case. And on a ranked preferential ballot, that could be tricky for Birdman. But let's remember, I'm narrowly predicting Birdman here. Let's remember that the one precedent we have for this exact system of voting was PGA, and it wasn't divisive there, or at least not divisive enough, because Birdman pulled out the win there. That was, even when the acclaim, the steamroller for Boyhood seemed to already be underway, Birdman won on the preferential ballot. So, it's not the be-all, end-all, but that trifecta, I think Ralph is right that SAG by itself doesn't matter, but just the general sweep of these industry groups, including that trifecta of PGA, DGA, and SAG. Like, as I've written about before, the last film to win those three industry awards and lose Best Picture was Apollo 13. So it proves that it's possible. It just doesn't happen very often. It would be more helpful if we had the Writers Guild Award, but it wasn't eligible there, so we don't know exactly how that would have shaken out. If it had won the Writers Guild, I think you win all those four, in addition to all of the other Crafts Guild Awards that it won. I think it would definitely be Birdman. I do think it's close. That BAFTA win for Boyhood was kind of surprising to me after that sweep for Birdman in the American groups. So Boyhood is definitely in the thick of this, but it's like I said before in this talk, I'm resigned to being wrong just about everywhere. So in this case, I think my math is a little bit better going with Birdman here.
The thing about PGA is that they kind of went off the rockers this year in terms of predicting the Oscars, because they picked the Lego Movie for animated feature. That's not going to win at the Oscars. They picked Life Itself for documentary. That's not going to win at the Oscars because they were snubbed. Both of those were snubbed. So I don't know why everyone just assumes that since they went with Birdman, that means Birdman's going to win the Oscar. I mean,
they've never been that predictive in the animated or at least, certainly not documentary. The guilds are not usually that reliable in looking at the documentary race. I can't vouch for animated specifically. I believe there has been a significant disconnect there, at least a couple times. But for that Best Picture award, they vote the exact same way the Oscar voters do, and they have picked the same winner for the last 7 years in a row, was it? So, it's a strong indicator, if not perfect, because obviously last year they got it right with 12 Years a Slave, and they also disagreed. They also picked Gravity because there was a tie. So, there's going to be an exception to some rule this year. But yeah, I definitely think the PGA is more in line with the Oscars for Best Picture than they are in most other categories.
And Charlie, final words, if we can hear you this time. What did you pick for Best Picture and why?
Well, I have Boyhood right now. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, then. Yeah, I'm still going with Boyhood. I was very tempted to switch to Birdman, but I am going to stick with Boyhood on this. I think that preferential ballot is going to help it a lot because I can see Boyhood still getting a lot of 2s and 3s. I don't see Birdman getting a lot of those second and third place votes. So, and with regard to the Producers Guild, yeah, they've been right for the past 7 years, but they have gone off. They have predicted, given us some really weird wins over the years. The Crying Game over Unforgiven, Moulin Rouge over A Beautiful Mind, Little Miss Sunshine over The Departed. So I really think that that in this instance, I really feel that Boyhood still has an edge, and I think that BAFTA win really shows that there is still support for it.
And you know what? The most important predictor of all is the Gold Derby Awards. Daniel, what won the Gold Derby Award for Best Film?
The Gold Derby Award for Best Film went to Boyhood, but that was a straight, pick your favorite vote. So it would be interesting to see if we had a system in place to sort of replicate a preferential ballot. What surprised me at the Gold Derby Awards was that Best Picture was fairly close between Boyhood and Birdman, but Linklater won Best Director in a landslide relative to that. And in this case, we're seeing it the other way around. Even people who are predicting Boyhood for Best Picture, a lot of them are going with going with Iñárritu for Best Director. So that's an interesting disconnect there. I wonder if our tea leaves might be a little mixed up there.
All right. So we should mention on Oscar Sunday, come to Gold Derby. Hours before the award show, we're going to have a live slugfest just like this. We're going to run over all of our predictions, tell you who the experts are predicting, the top 24 users, all that. So goldderby.com, Sunday, February 22nd. Be there.